I wanted to put this on here for two reasons. The first reason is I get a lot of people that ask me about what it is to be an audio engineer, or they'll ask me about mixing or mastering or recording music or anything like that. And I get a lot of confusion from people when they start hearing that somebody's an audio engineer or a mixing engineer, recording engineer, mastering engineer, or any of that kind of stuff. That I wanted to kind of lay out there what I've been through so far, to give you an idea of the complexities that's being dealt with. I put this channel together so that hopefully I can address a lot of the very pertinent issues in ways that can save people a lot of time from spending, 4 years, studying before they can actually understand those processes and what's going on. But, the reality of it is I've spent probably getting close to 6 years of studying. I mean, I was hurt in an accident and they put me on disability. And so I decided to study audio engineering and music. And I have about a master's in music. And when I got done with that, I started studying audio engineering. And for about the last 6 years, what I did is, I started to watch the videos and all that stuff, there was mountains of them. And I found really fast that I was not becoming an audio engineer. That was becoming very obvious very quickly, even though I could make music, which seemed to be two different things. That I could make, when I first got my DAW, I understood music pretty well, so I just started recording, and, it actually came out pretty sound and pretty well, but then I realized I wasn't an audio engineer, and I might need to figure out what is the problem here. And, so I started studying, and I started watching videos, and it became very obvious that I wasn't going to become an audio engineer like that, because everybody had their own way of doing it. And I spent a lot of time confused running around getting different answers about Bill and Bob's way to get something done in the studio, and I figured out that was the wrong way to approach it. And so, I basically went and found audio engineering, on the internet. And I followed every link on there. And I studied every word on there until I understood it well. And then I followed every link on there, and every link that sent me somewhere else. Then I followed every link on that, and everywhere that sent me. And I followed every link on that, and everywhere that sent me, and so on and so forth, like a tree that just branched out. So for 6 years, I did that. And I studied that. I downloaded all kinds of software. There's tons of free software that you've seen in some of the other videos in the last series of videos. For studying a lot of that kind of stuff. I studied electrical engineering, audio engineering, signal processing from Octave, which is like a MATLAB, mathematical laboratory. Just to give you an idea on this notebook, you can see here where, you look on the side of it and you look at some of, what I was looking at. And if you just stop the video for a minute when I'm going through this, you can see that, there's a whole lot of this for the first 4 years. I wasn't studying anything about, anything in the studio hardly, except for trying to relate it to the studio. And it went on for like 4 years, studying all these subjects and everything about it. And it went all the way down and to where I bought, I could tear my computer apart, because of trying to, study signal flow. Which I came to the real quick understanding that, there's two different types of signal flow. There's like signal flow and then there's signal flow, of the electronics. They're two different things of understanding what's happening. And that got complex again because then I had to start understanding code and how code goes together and how things are built with code, so I could understand all the stuff that I learned from studying electrical audio engineering to being able to apply that to code and what is the difference. This guy puts a piece of code together that's going to emulate this type of electrical processor, and how well is it put together? What does that mean when you're talking about whether it's a piece of code or the electrical actual circuit, and what's happening there, and why is that one better, and it was in depth. It got to be to the point that, it was 4 years. And after that, I went through all that, and like I said, that's the way that I did it. And when I got done with that, I started for the last 2 years, I've actually been in the studio, actually been able to be in the studio part-time. About half my day I can spend in the studio, and this is like a full-time student, 5 or 6 days a week. Most of the time I don't do anything on Saturday and Sundays. Sunday I relax, and Saturday I study. Almost always, until I'm an audio engineer. And, my actual notebooks for my studio aren't quite as long. It's a little bit shorter, but, I'm trying to compile everything that I've used to be able to apply it with the studio, and other pieces of software that I've been working with, that you've seen some of those if you've watched all the videos on this channel about some of the other stuff that I've worked with in my studies, and things that I use with the studio, and things that are going on in the studio. So, it's been like 6 years for me. I've hardly been able to record anything. I've hardly been able to mix anything. I've hardly been able to master anything. I could record, mix, and master anything you wanted me to if you gave me the correct equipment to do it. But all my time I spend, I've done mixing, mastering, and recording. I had to practice it somewhere to apply what I was learning to what was going on. And for the last 2 years, I've been working on that a lot. But I really, other than some people sending me stuff and say, hey, dude, can you mix and master this for me or do something with this? I haven't had no time. It's been now 6 years of study every day, all day long, every day, just like I'm a full-time school student. And most of the time I'm kind of a hard ass, so I go until the evening. Right now it's almost 6 o'clock, and it's Sunday, because I want to be an audio engineer and understand all this stuff. A real simple example that people will talk about, that they're an audio engineer, and it's like, well, I started studying it, and just the audio signal processing, all the books, that you got to go through and read. There's tons of books, and it's complex. The math and all the understanding of what's happening, so that, the whole key is that I figured out as I went along, it was like, well, now that I understand what's going on there with the math and what's happening with that, now I understand what's going on in the studio, to where, when I'm watching somebody and I see somebody do a video and I have this understanding, and I go, oh, well, I understand that. And I can go, oh, Bill's on to something there, and he's doing good. And Bob's an idiot. He doesn't have any idea what the hell that even means, or he just doesn't understand. Excuse my, calling him an idiot, but, and it was in depth, and I chased that. There's all kinds of courses on audio engineering to take, free courses. There's a couple of them there that, there were, when I first decided to go, I tried to take them when I first was going to do audio engineering, and then I had to get, Octave, and then, I had to, I was like, okay, I can't study audio engineering. I don't have any idea what any of that stuff is. Even I definitely don't understand the math. So I had to go back and start from the beginning with that. And it was a lot of math. It was studying coding, studying the mathematical concepts as they apply to the audio signal processing, whether it's analog signal processing and digital signal processing, and the difference and how that they relate to each other, and what the differences are when you start trying to combine them, or whether you start talking about what exactly is the process in each one of those in signal flow, what is happening at each stage. It gets, it was complex beyond comprehension. Different types of processors. Here's an example: is a normal processor, a von Neumann architecture processor in the CPU, and what's happening. And then you start getting into things like, different types of processors, like a Super Harvard architecture here. There's a prime example that this Super Harvard architecture is designed to do mathematical processing. It really is. It's a very, 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 very complex processor, and you just think of it as a CPU, but this is a totally different one for doing signal processing. And, and start to trying to read about that and study what all is happening in there, and with the address bus, and the data buses and the data registers, and how it can double multiply the multipliers, and that it can, it's that kind of stuff. That's audio engineering. Does that make sense? Understanding those things. And it got in depth. It got to the point to where, transforms was ridiculous. Some of the stuff you get into transforms, and I would just go, it was like, oh, this is science, dude. This does not have anything to do with what's going into my DAW. And it's like, well, it does, and it's how those things function And it's why you can do one thing to signal process and why you can't do something else, and why, you know, why things work better than other things don't, because of the way that it functions in a mathematical context. I mean, just something simple right here. This guy's explaining the fast Fourier transform, you know, the discrete Fourier transform. Now that expression, he's trying to explain it to you. And in this video, you can see the address here that, you know, he's going to go through the whole thing and explain everything that happens with that formula and all what it is. And it's complex, dude. I mean, it's like, it's not something simple, you know, it's not, you know, the simple things you would think about when you're looking at a DAW. And, you know, I mean, there was tons of things. I mean, I got notebooks up the wazoo about, you know, what's going on, you know, and I mean, things that I run into like radians, you know, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, what are radians going to have to do with anything, you know? And then when you start studying sinusoids and you start studying phase and you start trying to understand how that stuff's going together, and then, you know, polar waveforms and complex waveforms and you know, and, you know, how it all is going together in the studio, so that you can understand why those things are happening, so that you can address them correctly, rather than, you know, have no idea what that is. I mean, it was complex beyond comprehension. And I'm on 6 years now as a full-time student teaching myself, you know, and I'm a hard ass, you know, I mean, excuse my language, but I'm a hard ass, you know, I am. I mean, I push myself hard with this stuff. And it's like, and this is actual audio engineering. So, you know, that is some of the things that I just kind of wanted to lay out there, because, you know, I made up this channel so that people could address some of the simple issues that are happening in the DAW and try to state it in a way to where they don't have to go, you know, study the inverse discrete or Fourier transform, you know, so that, you know, they'd be like, what, dude, you know, and it's like, well, you know, I mean, it's pertinent, but they might not want to go that far in understanding what's happening. I suggest it, but, you know, a lot of people just won't, you know, and it's like, well, you know, that's what this channel is about. But just to answer that, that's what I've been through so far. And that was after studying music for 3 years and working towards a master's in music, that when I got done with that, I wrote a book, you know, and I haven't been able to publish it yet because I got doing audio engineering. But, you know, I mean, and it's taken 6 years. And I think I understand it well, but I probably got another year or two before I'm an audio engineer with electrical circuits, and could say that I'm an actual audio engineer before I'm comfortable saying that, and I understand most aspects. And you get a really good understanding why in the studio sometimes that you'll have recording engineers, mixing engineers, mastering engineers, and, you know, all kinds of different people work with their hands in a pot, because it can get complex. You know, so, I mean, it is complex, you know, and so, I hope that I kind of laid that out in a way that you can understand the complexities of what's happening when you decide to actually be an audio engineer, that it's a lot different in a lot of aspects than if you're going to become a recording, a mixing, or a mastering engineer. Mastering engineer can be different. You might be real close to being an actual audio engineer if you really get that far to be really good at what you do, depending. Some of them are not, and they just understand that simple process very well, but not really a whole lot of what's going on underlying it. So, you know, but that's the whole understanding. So, you know, I hope I laid that out so that you can understand that. And when if you decide to actually study it, and you're not just picking up stuff from this channel or picking up a little bit of stuff here and there, that you know how to go about getting there and doing that. A whole lot of those books that, if you make contact with me, books that, you know, some of the books I've read, and some of the courses and some of the links and notes that I've made, that I would make available to you and help give you some direction. But it's very in depth, you know, it just is. So, you know, I just kind of wanted to lay that out, because people have asked me that a lot, and I go, well, you know, it's complex, and it really is. And, you know, I'm sorry that it is, but it is, you know, and, you know, but I hope that you learn a lot from this channel, and it directs you and with an understanding of how complex it is, to where when I send you off in a direction, that I was trying to send you off in a direction for some reason, to save yourself a whole lot of time of watching a whole bunch of Bill and Bob's videos, that, you know, aren't getting you anywhere. So I hope I kind of addressed that to give you some understanding of what it takes. Peace, hope, love. Have a nice day.